I'm the New Mexico State veterinarian. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology, and normally it's not this difficult to do a presentation, and I apologize for wasting your time, but we're going to talk about the pending ADT rule changes. Animal disease traceability started in 2013, and there's been a push since about 2015 to update the rules, moving forward with some of the new electronic technology that makes it quicker and easier to record information and store information. And the whole point being that if we have a disease outbreak, to make it quicker and easier for us to access the information we need and trace back where a sick animal has been, where it's come from, where it's going. So that's the basis for the rule changes that we're going to talk about. My contact information is there. Anybody is welcome. That's my cell phone number on the first slide. All right. So the gist in the bottom line of this whole change is currently we use noose tags, which is a national uniform ear tagging system. You've all probably seen the bright metal, silver metal tags or the bright orange metal tags in cattle ears. There's a lot of problems with using those in that one, over time, they get worn and the numbers get flattened out. Their numbers stamped in the metal backing, and they're hard to read. The other thing is that in reading them, we have transposition of numbers, whether it's the person reading the tag and he gets a number wrong, or the person that's writing the tag number down, they heard it differently and they swap numbers. But in a lot of the old traces that we've tried to do using these metal tags, the numbers are wrong and we dead end and we can't find where we need to go. So it takes a lot more time to do it that way, both collecting the information and trying to track down and find the information. And going to an electronic ear tag makes it a whole lot easier for you can, these tags are visual. I'll show you a picture here in a minute, but they have a 15-digit number on them. Anything in the US gets an 840 series number. So they all start with 840. If you see them starting with a different prefix, those animals have come from a different country. We bring in a lot of Mexican feeder cattle, and they're all coming in with an electronic ID button that starts with 354 and has the 15 digits. So the biggest purpose in this rule change is to give tribal, state, and federal officials, private veterinarians, and producers a way to quickly respond to high impact diseases that currently exist in the US, or foreign animal diseases that threaten the viability of the US cattle and bison industries. I don't know if you guys are aware, but our port with Mexico in Santa Teresa is the largest land cattle port in the world. Last year, there were 529,000 head of cattle, and these are all steers or spayed heifers. They're all coming in strictly for the feeder market and to go to slaughter. But we bring in huge numbers of cattle. Mexico has recently started putting the RFID tags in all these animals so that they can be scanned coming across the border. It gives us a better inventory of what's coming. In the past, we relied on their metal ear tags, which are a lot harder to read, take a lot more effort, and they bring them across and sort them by weights and ship them out. So we had a stack of papers that the animals that were in that truck could be anywhere in the number series in this whole stack of papers. So traceability was extremely difficult. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So traceability of animals is what this is all about, animal disease traceability. They like to be able to trace everything from its farm of origin to slaughter, and then get to the point where the slaughterhouses can collect the information there, and we can take those numbers out of this when they're no longer adding a live animal. So when we have to do searches, we can take millions of animals out of the information system, so it's that much quicker to get it done. So where diseased animals are, as well as where they've been, is in emergency response. So we can trace forward and figure out where the exposures have been, where there can be pockets of animals with the disease. As I was telling you about how many animals come across at Santa Teresa, that makes it a red.
Dr. Zimmerman, your mic is cutting in and out.
Okay.
You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Okay. I'm sorry, it keeps shutting down and moving on me. But so being able to trace these animals, we're concerned about not so much Mexican cattle. Mexico doesn't have foot and mouth disease either. But we're afraid of a terrorist activity. Somebody introduces virus to the cattle in the pens at the port, can take 5 days before they show signs of the disease. In the meantime, they've been loaded into trucks and go to 12 different states. Yeah, and 4 days later, boom, we have a massive explosion. They figure that even a small outbreak could cost billions of dollars, but to have it blow up in 10 or 12 different states at a time could be a huge thing. So it's all about the traceability and being able to follow these animals, find these animals, whether it's a disease we have in the country already or a foreign animal disease. But it's much quicker, much more accurate, and much easier to read electronic ID electronically, and then have software that takes it, stores it. We have banks of computers that store all the information that we get from interstate travel, health certificates, TB test records, Bangs vaccination records. All of those come into us and are in our system, and we can take a number and type it in there, whether it's a health certificate number, an animal ID number, a veterinarian's name, an owner's name. We can put that in there and be able to search for the information. Using electronic systems, we can do the average trace in about an hour, where if we have to go back to the old paper storage, it could take us days or weeks to find them. Then if we run into the problem with transposed numbers and we can't find the tag we actually need to look for, then we're dead-ended, and that's just more time for disease spread with more harm done. Okay, next slide, please. So the proposal, cutting out a lot of the extra language, is that ear tags applied on or after a date 6 months, 180 days after publication in the Federal Register of a final rule following this proposed rule be both visually and electronically readable. So we'll get to a slide in a minute, but the RFID buttons have the number series on the face, they have the US shield, so you know it's an official ID, and then they have a chip in it that when you hit them with the wand, it makes them vibrate at a given rate, and it's read electronically. So you can go through and read thousands of animals and then send that information straight into your storage system, and it takes human error out of the picture, and that's generally what tends to slow things down. So this initial move is for cattle and bison covered under these regulations, and in a few slides we'll talk about what the exemptions are, who has to have the ID and who doesn't. So we're they're not requiring that everything be only electronically read. For the folks that don't want to invest the money into the reading equipment, you can still read them. They define being visually read as somebody with 20/20 vision at arm's length, being able to read the numbers on the tag. And reading the numbers on these RFID buttons, them readers that are on the metal tags, which I'll show you in a minute. So there's several proposals in there as well for clarifying record retention and record access. If there's a break and ID is traced back to a private veterinarian that put the ID in, then the feds will be allowed access to those records within 48 hours so that they can continue the search. A lot of small details, but that this is the biggest part of the change right here. Let's go to the next slide. So the next large definition change, dairy cattle have always been treated different for movement than beef cattle because they tend to be raised in more concentrated type facilities where beef cattle are out and grazing. Each cow raises her own calf. Dairy cattle tend to be hand raised. They get pooled colostrum from multiple cows. So the chance of disease transmission is greater in dairy cattle, and they're finally recognizing that. So in redefining the definition of dairy cattle, which does include dairy crosses now, and part of the reason they're doing that is that dairies have gone in trying to increase their income because milk prices have been so low, raising beef bulls, putting beef bulls on dairy cows. They'll breed 20%, the top milkers in the herd, pure Holstein or whatever dairy breed they are, and the rest of them, they breed them as these beef crosses. And it's hard to look at them and tell that they're not a pure beef animal. But because they're being raised in this environment with the different types of risks increased, dairy animals have to be tagged at birth from their point of origin for any movement. So these things will have to have one of these tags. You know, if the guy is selling those calves at a day old to somebody that raises the calves and then sells them to a feedlot, they have to go with the ID so that they can be traced back to the point of origin if there's any disease that they break with later that may have come from their dairy of origin. So it refers to these dairy breeds in particular, but any cross with them, and because of the intense concentrated management styles on the dairies. Pooled colostrum, they move multiple groups of calves together, so you get constant commingling and exposure to different cohorts, which increase the possibility of disease exposure. It's a management rather than it's nothing to do with the genetics of the dairy animals. It's because of the management that they're raised under that they're changing the definition in the rules. So dairy animals need to be tagged earlier, tested earlier with movement. TB is still an issue in dairy animals in New Mexico, Texas, several other states, although we've been at it for 100 years and we have it down to 0.005% of the herd. It's still there, and we need to be able to trace animals that break with it back to the point of origin. So that's why they changed the definition in here. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's the 85, that means they came to New Mexico. These are the new bright tags, they call them. So each animal gets one of these tags, has an individual identification number on it. And this is what we've been doing for the last almost 25 years as far as individual identification for these animals. If you look at the back of the tags next to the numbers, it has the USDA shield and the VS Veterinary Services on there. So you know that's an official ID. You can see these because they've got great light on them, but when you're out there and you've got heads swinging, it's hard to read these things, especially when they start to get dirt and manure packed in those creases, or if they abscess where the tag was applied and you've got a bunch of blood and pus and gunk. It's hard to read them. You got to get them scraped clean before you can find them, and then a lot of the numbers look similar. Let's go to the next slide. So on the left is the orange news tags, which are for designating brucellosis vaccinated animals. We're supposed to be free of brucellosis except for in the greater Yellowstone area in cattle. And they've got it in the elk and bison there, which are keeping it active, but all the other states are free of it. But a lot of people still brucellosis vaccinate their calves to make sure they stay ahead of it. Yeah, and then the tags to the right, that's another type of news tag, but you notice that one starts with NM. That's what we call producer tags. And we will sell these direct to producers that want to identify their animals themselves before they move on. We keep track of what number series go to what producer, and then we can trace them back to their point of origin that way. But it's just another method of metal ear tag that gives us fairly permanent ID. One of the things that we look at with getting new electronic ID tags approved is their durability, how well they stay in the ear, how long they last. Do they last the lifetime of the animal? So they've got to do a lot of research and a lot of field work to get the new tags to get them approved. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so these are radio frequency identification buttons, which we're now generally calling them all electronic ID. So you'll see EID in a lot of the verbiage on this. And they changed that because it used to say RFID, but there's work going on with different frequencies. So in order to leave the rule open for new types of tags, different frequencies, different systems to come in, as long as they meet the other requirements of the tags, then they'll be acceptable. And this leaves it so we wouldn't have to make a new rule change every time somebody made a new tag type. So you look at the white ones, those are standard ID tags. You can see they all start with 840 and they have a 15-digit number. Allflex is the brand on these. But you see it's got the US shield on there so that they're official ID. The orange ones are in place. If you're gonna brucellosis vaccinate your cattle, you can put an orange tag in them. And lots of people got used to seeing the orange tags, knowing that group of animals was done. So you still have the color variety. It works if you're not going to tag them until you vaccinate them. They have to be tagged before they leave the point of origin if they're going to be crossing a state line. So the white ones are fine and great. Allflex is working on one that will have a ring around the edge of the black there, and you can put this in at birth, and then you can push an orange circle into that ring. So the orange circle signifies that they've been brucellosis vaccinated. So they're working out different ways to get the same signaling from different colored tags using the new type tags. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so just lost it. So a lot of the old agreements won't change. States that require branding, we've got agreements with other states that brands or registry tattoos will work. So they can still be shipped on brands and tattoos if those agreements are in place. Cattle that are exempt, right now, anything under 18 months of age does not have to be tagged, does not have to have individual ID in order to go interstate. And because most animals are going to go to slaughter, or at least go to the feed yard by 18 months. So they were trying not to interfere in the slaughter and processing packing house business. So those cattle, anything under 18 months of age are still exempt. Cattle that do not cross state lines would be exempt from having to be tagged. If you've got a breeding herd of beef cattle and they stay home, they don't go anywhere, then you don't have to tag them because you're not moving them. If you were going to move those animals and they were over 18 months and you're crossing a state line, then they would have to be tagged. Cattle, they are going to grandfather in the metal tags. So if the cattle have already got a metal tag in, that can still act as official ID. What we're hoping is people try the electronic ID and they like the way it works and how it works for them. You can set up a panel reader and they have just go by it and it reads them. It saves a lot of time instead of having to catch everyone in the chute, get hold of their head, look at the ear tag, check their tags. So the electronics work better. But if they were tagged before the date that the final rule goes in, that's grandfathered in as official ID for those animals for the life of that animal. Beef, cattle, and bison less than 18 months of age are exempt. Animals going directly to slaughter or to an approved market and then to slaughter don't have to be identified. Another way to put it is, these are the animals that must be tagged under the rule. All sexually intact cattle and bison 18 months of age and older, all female dairy cattle of any age, and males born after March 2013. And that falls back to when they put the first ADT rule in effect. And they took most of the data out of the other minor definitions and things, but they left it in here. There still could be a 10-year-old dairy bull, but if you've ever seen the size of those guys, their joints and legs break down and they don't last a long time. Cattle and bison of any age used for rodeo or recreational events, and cattle and bison of any age used for shows or exhibition would have to be tagged. So in a way, it's not changing. The type of tag is changing, but they can still be visually read if you choose to do it that way. But they have to have electronic capability. If they're going through sale yards, it'll be a lot easier for them to put a panel reader or use a reading wand and get the whole group of cattle in, and then they can download it into their computer system to track them. Okay, next slide. So now it's time for you to ask questions, and hopefully I've stimulated a few. There's a lot more details in this. They've opened it up for the comment period. You can put comments in until April 19th. They will go through and look at every comment, take them into consideration. USDA is very risk adverse. They don't like to get sued. They don't like to make people mad, but they still often do. So they're going to look at industry input, producer input, and see what kind of support or feedback they're getting. And then they'll formulate a final rule, which could be all of what we've just gone over, or it could be only parts of it. So any questions I can answer for you?
If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can insert your questions in the chat box. Stuart, I see you have a question.
Hi, Dr. Zimmerman. It's Stuart Romero. I have a question. Are there going to be any funding available for any of the tribal and associations that are wanting to get on this EID program?
Yes, and right now, for the last couple of years, USDA has been providing the free RFID buttons. So if you will get hold of me, we can talk about how many I can send to each group. I've got about 100,000 of them, maybe 120,000 of them right now. So we are looking to share them. A couple of the Pueblos have reached out and we've provided them with tags. The only thing that you got to pay for is the shipping. If you want to come and pick them up, then there is no shipping. And then you'll need to provide a way to read them, either buy a wand or there's some cheap Japanese handhelds. You can read them one at a time. There's a lot of options for readers out there, but take my number down or my email and contact me and we can talk about what your association needs.
Okay. All right. I'm just wondering because the Pueblo of Laguna, they did provide them free for us, but the last 2-3 years they didn't have no funding, so we were buying them on our own from Allflex.
Yes, and I talked to Talani Francisco.
Okay.
I just provided quite a few tags for Laguna.
Okay. All right. Yeah, she's in our association, so that's I was kind of wondering if she did pick up those EID tags for us.
Yeah, we've got a bunch set aside for you guys.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll contact you if she hasn't picked them up because I know we start branding here in a couple weeks.
Okay, she's actually at the meeting I'm at right now, so I'll ask her when I get out there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, or just remind her to pick them up for us.
Okay, I'll give her a nudge.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. What is the cost associated with the tags?
The tags, depending on who's buying them and how many they're buying, they're going to run anywhere from about $3 a tag down to about $1 a tag. The bigger the number, the cheaper they are. This last shipment I got for this year from USDA, there were 165,000 tags, and they figured that it cost them $285,000. There's multiple ways to purchase the tags. You can buy tags direct from Allflex or Datamars or Circle Y. Those are the three bigger producers that have got approval. And the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. We always encourage associations to go in together and buy them together so you can buy a bigger number, and that will help decrease the cost. When this goes into effect, if you take an animal to a sale yard now, they punch one of those silver bright tags in the ear and they charge you for a tagging fee. So it's Stuart saying that he thinks they paid $2.15 a piece. But the sale yard will charge you a tagging fee to put that metal tag in. So they're going to charge you a tagging fee and they'll charge you the cost of the tag, but anywhere from about $1.25 up to $3.50, $3.20 depending on how many you buy. And they'll get cheaper over time because once this becomes rule, we're going to be seeing more companies entering into the market to get approval. They want to get in on the action, and the more competition, the cheaper the prices are going to be.
Right. And so like you were saying, purchasing it in bulk, and you don't have to purchase yearly. You can just purchase a bulk, as you were saying.
Yeah, once those tags, what you have to purchase them is a premise ID. And that's something that our office can help set up for you. Dr. Eckhoff, who's one of my field veterinarians, was talking with Dr. Day up there, and they're working on a form so folks up there can fill it out, submit it to us, and we can get you a premise ID to tie these tags to. But then we have the specific place or premise ID that it goes to, and if those turn up as a problem down the road, we know how to trace it back. But they're good. You know, you buy the tags, you can sit them on the shelf for 3 years. You know, they're not dated. They're good indefinitely, so you don't have to use them all at once. You can buy them in bulk and then use them over time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation as well.
Thank you. I
Jesse,
apologize for all the delays in that.
it's fine. So I believe another person had a question. Marge, would you unmute yourself?
Good evening, Dr. Zimmerman. This is Marjorie Lantana. And like Jesse mentioned, other participants, we are very thankful for the information that you share with the producers. And my question was what Jesse asked, the cost, and then who the supplier would be. I think some of them are already being ordered, or you have some, I'm just thinking back like 5 years ago, the Navajo Nation provided us probably 100 and they called it RFID tag, and then they identified our location, and that's the premises ID. So I do have some tags at this time that I guess I'm just saving it. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but just like you mentioned, there's a comment period, April 19. After I know some ranchers are not very agreeable with these ID tag. I guess it's at their own opinion, but I think we need to be we need to assure that our animals are healthy and able to trace back where the animal is coming from if they should have disease. So I guess my question is, by April 19th, all these questions, comments that will come in, and if the majority of all of the producers or comment are opposing, does that mean that this animal traceable ID law will not kick in, or is it still going to kick in?
My gut feeling is that it will probably move ahead anyhow. They launched this program back in 2019, and it was going to be electronic ID by 2023. And immediately, one of the big cattle producing groups sued the USDA. And they sued them on a technicality on the administrative, and so they ended up deciding that maybe they were right. They didn't do it the right way, so they pulled it off. They're working on it, and now it's back out. So I think that if it's a technicality, they're going to push forward anyhow. The industry is pretty split right now. You know, nobody likes change, but I think the reason for putting this program into place is so important for everybody. That, you know, big producers, small producers, yes, it's going to be different. It's going to require changing some management style as far as tagging when you tag, things like that. But my suspicion is that they will look at the biggest group. You know, there's a lot of people that just don't like the government business, period. And that's been the biggest complaint all along, is that what are we going to do with this information? Well, all we're going to do is try and make sure we're keeping animals in this country healthy. We're not looking to get into people's business. But there's a lot of distrust in government. But I believe that they, unless they just get shut down with comments across the board, I think they will probably go ahead with the program in some form similar to what I presented to you.
Okay. Yeah, it does make sense, that we must be able to provide healthy product to our consumer. And then the other question was, let's see, okay, we're with the Navajo Nation. And Navajo Nation is like, it covers, we're in 3 states. Navajo Nation covers 3 states, Arizona, New Mexico, and part of a little portion of Colorado and also Utah. And you mentioned that these tags will be required if they're crossing the state line. And we'll have some producers selling, let's say, for example, from Arizona reservation going into Kirtland, that's going into New Mexico. So that means the producer that's leaving Arizona corral will have to apply this ear tag, and or will the sales barn apply the tag and charge the producer?
Yeah, and actually, because Navajo land, you're a sovereign nation, the state lines within Navajo land don't count as crossing a state line. It's when you come off of Navajo land, whatever state you come into. So if you're starting in New Mexico, going to a sale yard in New Mexico, you're not crossing a state line.
Okay. All right. Let me put another question out there. Okay. I live in the eastern part of the Navajo Nation, and it's still considered the reservation. And okay, I'll be selling in Colorado, let's say Bream, Colorado, and then I will need this tag, right?
Yes, if you're going to go into Colorado. Now, depending on the age of the animal, if you're selling
Oh,
animals
yes.
over,
Okay. That's true again. Okay. Yeah.
so there are, when it comes right down to it, what this really affects is about 11% of the animals
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
beef cattle in this country.
All right.
It's not everything that's going to go. If you've got a cow herd and they stay home, you don't have to worry about tagging them because they're not moving anywhere.
Yes.
And under 18 months don't have to be individually ID'd.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Zimmerman, for sharing a lot of information with us. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you,
Do
Marge,
you have any
Stuart,
other
Jesse, for all the questions that you have. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Dr. Zimmerman, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just seeing if there's any other questions.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Zimmerman?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Good evening, Dr. Zimmerman. Thank you for the presentation. I had a question. The Navajo Nation, like 10, 15 years ago, made a requirement for the premise IDs. And I believe my grandmother did all that, but in over 15 years, and the premise ID didn't become so popular industry wide. I was wondering if does the state of New Mexico Livestock Board or do research premise IDs, or would I have to go through the Navajo Nation's, I guess, Department of Agriculture?
No, if they were registered as a Prem ID, they should be in our record system. You can call the office and ask for Margot Rivera, and she can research it for you. And the office number is 505-841-6161, and ask for Margot.
Okay, I do appreciate that. And also, for my heifers, for the bangs, brucellosis tags. My vet,
Mhm.
I take them to the vet before a year old, and they do the vaccination and the tagging. What are they? Are the vets able to do the new EIDs, or are they? Do we have to go bring our own numbers? I guess if we do go through the EIDs.
You could do it either way. And your veterinarian, if a veterinarian purchases the tags, then they have to go into the system and put your Prem ID in for that tag series so that they're in the master system, and anybody looking that, one of those heifers turns up somewhere down the road with some disease, we can trace them back to where they started. So as long as the private vet agrees to enter them into the system, they can put them in.
Okay.
Or you can bring your own in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I know during the drought, I know that I try to keep options open, and I know the sales barns were looking for bangs and all that, and I got charged a couple times for bringing old cows in that didn't have the silver or the orange tag. So yeah, it was something that that we just started doing after that. So keeping an eye on. So, but yeah, I do appreciate all the information.
No problem. We're always open to help. And that number that was on the initial screen is my cell phone number. I don't even have a desk phone. I'm out of the office so much. But you're welcome to call my cell phone number if you have questions down the road, projects you might want some input on. I'm more than happy to help. I'll give you my number again just to make sure you've got it. It's 505-414-2811.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmerman.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you everyone for all the questions that you had. A lot of great questions. So thank you for sharing them. And thank you, Dr. Zimmerman, for this presentation on how the ADT works, to the benefits for producers to become aware of this information that you have shared. So that will conclude our presentation tonight. A lot of great questions. Thank you for those that have attended this evening's webinar. So all of those questions were pretty good. So appreciate that. Again, thank you, Dr. Zimmerman, for your time presenting this presentation. We did have a little rough beginning, but we made it strong on the outside.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you.
Yeah, thank you. You're more than welcome to stay online or not. That will be up to you. We'll just be continuing on with our announcements of ours, so with our upcoming events. But you're more than willing to stay on, or you can go ahead and log off if you want. But I just want to say thank you. Man.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to this evening's presentation. I did release a poll, and if I could get you guys all to answer some of our questions, I would really appreciate it. So all of your results, we gathered them, and we really look through these polls. But if I could have you guys take a minute out of your time to answer those polls, I greatly appreciate it. So just to let you guys know, next week on Monday, on April 17th, we'll have a webinar on beef cuts. This presentation will be presented by Tom Bertelli. He's coming from New Mexico Beef. He's the consultant for New Mexico Beef, I should say. But please head over to our website to register for this webinar. And like all of our webinars every week, they start around about 5:30 p.m. through 6:30 p.m. So if I could get you guys all to register for this event, head over to our website. And if I can go on to the next slide, and it's not letting me. Okay, great. So end of this month, we'll have a livestock first aid training for producers. I'm sure all of you guys have cattle and sheep and all sorts of animals, from horses to goats. We're gonna be having a livestock first aid training here in Crown Point on April 27th, starting from 9 a.m. through 4 p.m. So those of you that are wanting to learn how to use a livestock first aid kit to practice general care to treat infections and injuries, this is your chance to attend this training. This will be at Dene College campus at Crown Point, New Mexico. And this is the type of bag that you guys will be receiving. So just to let you guys know, those of you that have registered, do join us during this day. We are going to host another one soon, so stay tuned on when that date is. So we'll be sharing that information on our Facebook page. It'll be at Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project on Facebook. But just to let you guys know, is one of our in-person workshops that we're going to be hosting this month. And those of you that have been wondering about what our website looks like, so this is just the main platform that you'll be that will show up on your Google if you type in our website name at nsa.nmsu.edu. So this is the main screen that you'll be seeing. And this is our upcoming events format. So if you click upcoming events here, it should bring up another tab that looks just like this. And it will have the date of when that webinar is going to happen, to who's presenting that presentation, and a registration platform right there. So moving forward, our conservation planning program. So the NSA project has collaborated with the Dene College Land Grant Office to provide a conservation planning program. So those of you that are in need of assistance to develop a conservation plan, please email us at nsaproject@nmsu.edu. And that tab can be found under conservation planning program. So it's just right above upcoming events. You can click on that conservation planning program and it'll give you lots of information. But I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Like I said, we are on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. So all of our weekly webinars are recorded and they are posted on our YouTube channel. And we also have monthly newsletters. So if you guys want to subscribe to our monthly newsletters, head over to our website under newsletters and you should be able to subscribe from there. But other than that, all of our information can be found on our website. And I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I hope you all have a good night. Just to give you guys an overview of who we are, we're known as the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. In short, we're called the NSA Project, and we are part of the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service Initiative, delivered in collaboration with two of our main partners, the Dene College Land Grant and COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. And our project is funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. So moving on to our main goals. So we help producers improve their operations, profitability, and sustainability through our educational programs and our technical assistance for those producers in McKinley and San Juan and Cibola counties. And to kind of expand on the educational program aspect, we provide weekly presentations, such as we're doing today, and alternating those topics each week, from farming to livestock and back to crops and gardening and so forth. We also host some in-person workshop with our trusted
feel
partners
free
from
to
soil
call me
surveying
with
to herd health and
questions.
conservation
I
planning,
leave a message. I
as
will call you
well as
back.
moving on to
Sometimes
the second
I
bullet
am
point,
out running around
USDA
TB testing
resource
cows
fairs
for
that we
endless
gather
days.
local field
But at
reps
the end of the day, I
from
always check
each of
messages
the
and
counties
return
that I
them. And
have
that's my
mentioned
email
to
there
share
as
their
well. You
local
can send me
programs
an
that
email.
they
Let's go
have
ahead and go to next slide.
that will help increase our Navajo farmers and
So,
ranchers' knowledge to access
here's the link
available local
To
programs.
read the rule,
And lastly, through our
have
gardening
been
programs,
encouraging
increase
everybody
local
to get in
production
there,
and
have a look
consumption
at
of
the
fresh fruits
rule.
and vegetables and healthy foods
There's
by
a
Navajo
lot
families and
of
individuals.
verbiage in there that compares back to what was in the original rule and dates and times, and a lot of it doesn't have a lot to do with what they're coming down to presenting on this, and that's that we're going to go to electronic identification for interstate movement of cattle and bison. Go to the next slide. And this is where you can go to make a comment if you choose to do so. You go to the regulations.gov InterAPHIS 2021-0020 in the search field, select the documents tab. It'll give you a list of documents and you scroll down until you see the 2021-0020 with this title. And on the bottom is a comment box, and you click on that and you can make any comments. I'm for it, I'm against it. What will he do about this? Who's responsible for what? And they're looking for input before they come up with a final rule. So if you feel to do so, do make a comment for or against. Okay, next slide.